Hey, good afternoon. Carl Rominger here. 540-0580, 540-0580, show where I answer your legal questions. And can I tell you, it's an honor to be on AM radio. Last night, I had my AM radio on as I was driving home, the early wee hours of the morning, and listened to a little Coast to Coast AM. And again, it's good to know that you're in the same place as Robert the Haunted Doll, which they were talking about last night, and this crazy little doll that's haunting people down in Florida. So anyhow, here I am on the AM radio. But in the daylight hours, it's a little more serious. They just got done answering some financial questions for you. I'm going to do the legal questions. Maybe someday they'll let me on Coast to Coast AM. I'm just going to have to kind of come up with a good story, I think. Ghost in the attic or something. Anyhow, wanted to let you know, make sure you go to weekendappointment.com. Make sure you check in there and get your free will kit. We're still getting those in. And if you haven't done it yet, you can't go wrong. The price is free. So if you're a new listener to the show, you wouldn't know this. If you're a long-time listener but haven't done it, there's no reason not to. We'll get your will. We'll look at it. We'll get you a brand new one if you've never had one, and the price is free. Of course, if you have a multi-million-dollar estate, we have to do a little more work than a free, simple will. And then I also talk to you about powers of attorney and living wills as well, which are extremely important. Tom, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger. My talk line number is 540-0580. What's going on, Tom?
Hi. I live with my wife's grandparents. We have a lease that says we rent 4 rooms and a bathroom. Her family just comes up and down as they please. I just wonder what my rights are.
So you guys lease a certain area.
Yes.
Is it the entire upstairs?
No. There's 5 rooms. The lease says we rent 4 rooms and a bathroom.
Okay, and I assume that does it exclusive lease? Does it say that, or does it?
It's pretty simple. That's pretty much all it says. Okay.
The reason I'm trying to figure out, it sounds like you're more in a boarding house situation. I mean, is the bathroom shared, I assume, with anybody else on the upper floor?
No, it's just us. It also says we have kitchen privileges.
Okay. Yeah, the short answer is, I mean, they can't really come in your room. Theoretically, they've leased those rooms to you.
I figured I had an assumption of privacy.
Yeah, absolutely. If the police, for instance, came with a search warrant, to search their premises, there's an argument that your premise wouldn't be part of it. If the police came and said to your mother-in-law, hey, we hear there's some pot plants in Tom's room, we want to go take a look, she couldn't let him in, theoretically. I mean, there's exceptions, and there's lots of crazy little cases where things are blurred, but that's the general rule. So, yeah, you do have an expectation of privacy. You also have what's called a right of quiet enjoyment in a leasehold, meaning that, your landlord really shouldn't be crawling around your place all the time. Now, it's a little more complicated because you're in the boarding house type situation where you're literally sharing a floor with somebody, it sounds like.
No, they live downstairs. We are upstairs, but they have what they call a room for storage.
Okay. So what else are they doing up there?
Well, yesterday, my wife's sister came up, and I'm in the other room. It's 90 degrees, so I'm in my underwear. My wife tells her to wait. She said it 3 times, and she still came upstairs. I want to know that I can say, hey, stop, get out. And
yeah, you can do that. You can do that. Of course, they can evict you, too. They only need 30 days' notice.
Okay.
Because your lease probably doesn't say what the term is, right?
No, it doesn't. We're planning on moving in about 3 months anyway. I just want to know what...
Yeah, I'd get out of there. It doesn't sound like too cozy of a situation. But, yeah, you have the right to exclude them from those rooms. Of course, they have the right to exclude you with due notice and an eviction or voluntary leaving. All right, Tom?
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you. 540-0580, 540-0580. That was getting towards Coast to Coast AM. I'm not quite there yet, Shane, but that story, the guy, underwear up in his room, 90 degrees. Mike, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger.
Hi, Carl. How are you?
Good, Mike.
Hey, I have a question for you. In February, we had problems with our furnace. And I hired a local business. I called them to come out and fix it. They made one visit, and 2 hours later, we had the same problem again. And they ended up coming out 2 more times. And, of course, we got charged for each visit and all the parts for everything, too. And after the 3rd visit, we still had all these problems. And looking at the mounting bills from the situation, I just thought, well, we'll just try to live with it for a while, until we get ahead on things.
Mm-hmm.
In June, I called another agency just to come out and look at it. And because our furnace also heats our hot water. We have an older home. And the guy came out and he said, actually, all you needed to have done to it was a cleaning. And the guy cleaned it, and it's been running perfectly ever since.
Hmm.
And I told him that, about our experience with the other company, and the gentleman said, well, quite frankly, before slapping on all these new parts, they should have at least cleaned it first.
Right.
And I'm wondering, I've never been in a situation like this before. I've been making, monthly payments to the first company.
How much money are we talking about total?
Well, now we're down to about $400 left. But
how much was it originally?
It was up around $800.
Okay.
And the problem is, like, should I call them and see if they have some kind of warranty on their work? Or they've never called since, to see if there was anything, things were okay.
Did you but you haven't let them know that it wasn't working, right?
No, because quite frankly, I didn't want another visit. I've had to, we've paid for each of the visits, even though at neither time have they ever fixed.
Yeah. Seems to me that you should have not had to pay for them to come back out to service their own work. Of course, the dilemma you're going to run into, and I can already see if I was representing them, I'd say, well, yeah, maybe my guy should have cleaned it, but he did put all those new parts on, and that's why it worked when the other guy came out, and he cleaned it because of all those new parts. So it seems to me you might want to just go to them and say, hey, here's where I'm at. I had somebody come out. They cleaned it. They said that's all it really needed. I'm willing to call it even with you at this point. Otherwise, I'm going to sue you for my $400 back at the district justice. Make sense?
Okay. It's just been in a quandary about it.
Yeah, Mike. Just because somebody says you owe them money doesn't mean you owe them money. Okay. All right. It's precept number one. Number two, if they didn't do the work or they did it in a shoddy, unworkmanlike manner, you shouldn't have to pay for it.
Okay.
Here's the deal, though. Disgorging that $400 is going to take more work and effort than it's worth. And if you hired a guy like me, you'd have to spend more than the $400 to get it back.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't pay them any more money. And if they sue you, you can defend. And what I would do, though, is I would be proactive, and I'd go to them and say, hey, you didn't do your job. I had another guy come out, and he says if you'd have done A, B, and C in the first instance, my bill would not be nearly as high as it is. So in order to call it even, you keep what you got, and I'm not paying you anymore. Are we good? Kabish? When they say no, you say, then sue me. And if they say, yeah, you say, good, thank you very much. All right?
Okay.
You got your marching orders.
All right, that sounds great. Carl, I appreciate your help.
All right, brother.
Thank you.
540-0580. Carl Rominger here, the show's weekend appointment. When we get back from the break, we'll be talking with Jim. Hey, welcome back. Carl Rominger here, answering your legal questions. 540-0580. Just shoot on in. Get it answered for free. Sometimes it's a simple question. Sometimes it's, hey, well, you need to go sit down with somebody. And, of course, you may already know you have a legal issue. And if you do, come see me in my office. Just go to weekendappointment.com. You can sign up there. You can find my phone number, my email. You call Tammy, Linda, anyone in the office. And kind of exciting. I got a new guy starting on Monday. He just took the bar exam, and he's going to probably be licensed in October. So I'm excited about that. So he's going to be kind of stuck doing the grunt work for a little while, but we're going to take him around and show him how things really work and get him ready to go. So that's always exciting. And he's a very smart young man and actually top of his class. So I got lucky. The down economy, I can cherry pick. That's the beauty of it. In a small office, we can do a little better than we usually would in terms of who we would hire, because the big firms down in Philly who used to pay ridiculous sums of money to attract people themselves have slowed down a little bit. Jim, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger.
Hey, Carl. I was in a traffic accident. I was heading on a 4-lane road, heading southbound, and the individual in the left lane moved into my lane and hit me. We pulled forward about 3/4 of a mile to a Turkey Hill and got out, looked at the car, called the police. Police wrote a report. The guy in the left lane was disappointed. He thought that I sped up and rear-ended him. The police report didn't reflect that. So it was a drawn-out process for about a month. He was trying to get the police report changed, so the insurance wouldn't cover it. It turned out the insurance paid 100% of the damages on my vehicle. They sided with me. So 2 days ago, I get a call from a sergeant at the police department, and he said, "I'm just here to follow up with report that Officer A, I don't want to give out his name over the phone, but to follow up with the report because the individual who was in the accident with you was trying to get it changed." And he said, "I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of that, and did you have any other comments on the situation?" Well, I was kind of taken back. I'd never gotten really a phone call from a police officer at 7:15 on a Wednesday evening. So I said, I really don't think there's anything else to discuss. The insurance took care of it. I think the situation's resolved. I don't feel comfortable talking over the phone without not knowing who I'm speaking with. And the guy got real belligerent and said, "Well, then I'll just slap a misdemeanor on your ass," or excuse my language on the air, but that's what he said. He said, "I'll slap a misdemeanor on you for not cooperating with the police investigation." And I said, "Well, listen," I said, "you can mail me something. I'd be glad to speak with you in writing or just kind of prove who you are." And then we kind of left the conversation at that. So I called the number back, found out it was a police department, left a message for him, said, "Hey, listen, I'd be willing to cooperate with you. I just, don't always get a call from someone in the evening, let alone a police officer saying that you need to cooperate with an investigation."
Right.
So am I am I liable to speak with him, or what should I do?
You don't have to talk to him. The short answer is you didn't do anything wrong, and his threat was probably wholly inappropriate, although not completely unheard of. I hear this one a lot when police officers are trying to get people to cooperate. "Well, I just charge you then. I'll just charge you with something."
Right.
Right. It's a tool, I think. The short answer is, obviously, it's probably in your best interest because it's a civil matter, I assume. There was no drinking and driving. There was nothing that's going to result in that. And, just so you know, these police reports are presumptive but not controlling. And what I mean by that is a lot of times people look at the police report, and the little joke out there, by the way, is who is Unit 1? Because Unit 1 is the kiss of death. That means you're at fault.
Right.
So the short answer is people look at those, and insurance adjusters, lawyers, we look at them, and we tend to rely on them. But when we get into court, they're always up for grabs. I did an arson case one time where I sued somebody for negligent wiring. I shouldn't say arson, but a burning case where a person's house burnt down, and we sued the person who had wired it because it was wired wrong, according to the fire warden, state police fire warden, right?
Yeah.
A few years later, because the case is going on forever, we're in a deposition, and I'm deposing this officer, and he says, "Well, I'm going to change my report. See, what happened is I was brand new back then when I wrote that, and now I realize with some more training and experience that it wasn't faulty wiring that caused it. Let me tell you what I now think the cause was." Well, obviously, old Carl's like, "Oh, man." But my point is they're always open for review, revision. And I guess this other guy's just fighting hard. He probably just wants to talk to you so he can say, "I talked to everybody and we're going to stay where we're at."
Right. Well, he kind of wanted me to divulge information that Unit 1 was belligerent and that it was a case of road rage.
Gotcha.
And, I didn't know who I was speaking to, and I said, "Listen, I don't really feel comfortable talking on the phone." And that's when the guy said, "Well, I'm going to slap a misdemeanor on you." And I'm thinking, well, what the heck?
Right.
I didn't know. I called the guy back, but I didn't know if I should pursue it any further or just kind of drop it. He has my message, and he knows my number, so he can call me.
Yeah, I just wait till he calls you back.
Okay, cool. Cool. Appreciate it, Carl.
All right, my friend.
Hey, thanks a lot.
All right, thank you. Oh, boy. That's never any fun. Got to be. And yeah, a lot of times police call it odd hours, but the reason for that, quite frankly, is they don't work 9 to 5 for the most part. They work these crazy 8-hour shifts a lot of times, or sometimes longer, that are overnights or covering afternoons. And so I know this from having to talk to police officers routinely that, sometimes the best time to call one officer might be 8 a.m. and another one, we go out to the state police barracks at 1 a.m. so I can sit down and talk to the officer because that's when he's on. Jay, you're on the WHP 580 with Carl Rominger.
Yeah, Carl. Let me get off the speakerphone.
That's cool.
This is just my opinion. I don't know the case, but I actually wasn't planning on calling. I heard your advertisement for DUI.
Yes.
And certainly people that are charged with DUI are entitled to legal counsel. And I am sure that you have caused many situations where possibly the person wasn't intoxicated.
More than you'd imagine.
Okay, but I guess I have a hard time, and I have a drink occasionally. I don't quite understand why people or how people get intoxicated and then go out and drive, or they can't realize they're intoxicated.
Well,
let me finish.
Yeah, go ahead. I have a couple theories.
My whole thing is, when you have figured out somebody was intoxicated, why aren't they just the license taken away? The license taken away permanently. That's it.
Well, okay, I'll give you a couple.
Why aren't we harder in this society? We worry about somebody having an ounce of marijuana, and we're that's so weird, that's immoral, blah, blah. But we're like very. It seems to me, when I hear about people having several DUIs and still being able to drive, I don't quite understand that.
Jay, let's back up. I want to give you a couple examples here. First of all, what's more dangerous than drinking and driving? Do you know? Cell phoning and driving. But you don't see that becoming completely illegal yet, and you can see why, because there are billions and billions of dollars of infrastructure at stake and billion-dollar companies in charge.
There's lobbying, and there's power, and there's stupidity.
And then there's Bacardi and all the big liquor companies that are concentrated into a few global corporations. They have a lot of power. But we do this with all kinds of things in our society. So we consciously choose to ignore certain risks and pretend that they're not there. So why is it still lawful to sell cigarettes?
It's an interesting question. I talked to the doctors on WHP this morning.
And the answer is it's if you're big enough, smart enough, and clever enough. I'll give you an example. If you're some poor realtor out there or CPA and you make up some legal forms, okay, they'll run after you and charge you with the misdemeanor unauthorized practice of law, and sometimes the state bar associations will chase you around or the courts, okay? Mm-hmm. But if you're a company called LegalZoom, right, and you're a big California corporation with .com money behind you, and your board of directors is made up of the guys that founded Google and Yahoo and because all those same people are involved in all that stuff, isn't it amazing that you can wholesale sell legal documents, create legal documents for people, essentially give legal advice, and never once be called to the mattress on it because nobody fights the big guy. So my point is, first of all, in our society, there's a tendency not to want to fight the big interests. If you penalize drinking and driving too harshly, the restaurant associations, the alcohol retailers get impinged. Number two, though, and I'm going to take it down to the small guy, though, let me give you an example. Let's assume that you're a 30-year-old woman with a 35-year-old husband and 3 little kids. And he goes out and screws up and drinks and drives, right?
Yeah.
So we should yank his license for life so that you and I can pay for the chip and the WIC and the all the other welfare benefits that are going to be necessary because the breadwinners.
Carl, ever hear of public transportation?
And really, from where to where?
Well,
from Newville? I'm going to hop the bus and.
Carl, we got to get out of places like Newville, man.
But listen, I'm trying to point out though, it's not a simple straight line problem. Number two, however, is just because the police say you're intoxicated, trust me, the .08 standard is a joke. Most people. Did you know this? I'm going to tell everybody. At .08. According to the United States Department of Transportation, you are more likely to pass a field sobriety test than if you're sober. That's a fact. Yet for some reason we say that .08 is impairment. Now, why is it that you're more likely to pass? The answer is it turned out to be a statistical anomaly, but nonetheless it means that you are not actually impaired.
Well, you know, I just read an article called The Best Laws That Money Can Buy. And obviously I know all this stuff, Carl. And I get very frustrated because people in power don't really care about the rest of the world. They care about themselves.
Well,
I mean, why are we such? How is the law going to ever change this?
I had talked to a retired state representative not too long ago, who is a Democrat. So I want to qualify that because some people will think, oh, the Dems would never talk like this. But he says, stupidest thing in the world that they're going to try to do is sell the turnpike. And he's like, not because it would be a bad business decision. He says, but what will happen is, as soon as that money's collected, it will all be spent. He said, I spent 20-some years up there in the legislature, and I can tell you that the way it works is on both sides of the aisle, as soon as a big pile of one-time money comes in, it gets carved up 1,000 different ways, and as long as everybody gets enough for their district, everybody will sign off on it.
I worked for the federal government, and I know that what would happen is if they had excess at the end of the fiscal year, They were afraid to not spend it because they wouldn't get it the next year. My point is we all, and especially the people in power, the people in the legislature, we all know this happens. Don't we care about 100 years from now, 200 years from now? I mean, I'm just a little frustrated. Obviously, we're getting far afield.
Yeah, I know.
But that's the whole point. I mean, it's. I understand smoking, and I'm an ex-smoker who, is very anti-smoking. Just got diagnosed with a disease, but I understand that if you ban smoking, there's a financial cost.
There's also there's a constant tension, and I've been fighting with these guys on huntingpa.com about the new poaching law. And there are scenarios under the new poaching law where a 17-year-old kid could go out with his buddies, shoot 3 deer, illegally, and lose his gun rights for life. And a lot of these guys on Hunting PA are like, oh, that's fine. You do the crime, you do the time, you get what you deserve. And I'm like, really? So at 17, this kid's going to screw up an aspect of his life.
I'm not necessarily talking about taking somebody's license away for life. I just don't. I guess I'm frustrated because I don't understand people after they've been convicted 3 or 4 times or had an accident or actually hurt somebody. And I realized that it's like I was addicted to cigarettes once, But doesn't the brain ever work logically?
Well, for you actually no. The answer is human brains don't work logically.
Among legal legislators,
right.
I mean, I'm just saying this makes me, I might as well blow the world up.
Jay, I got to go to break here, brother.
Take care.
Thank you very much. 540-0580, 540-0580. We get back, we'll talk with Ken and Melanie. Hey, welcome back. Carl Rominger here. Going to take some more phone calls. Show's weekend appointment show where I answer your legal questions. The other fellas want to take their license for life. I got these guys on Hunting PA that think you should lock 10-year-old kids up for poaching. I understand hardcore poachers should be shot. I don't have a problem with that. But it's a little more complicated. And let me give you guys a couple statistics that I want everybody to put in the back of their head. 7% of the Pennsylvania state budget, $1.9 billion, is spent on the state taxpayer-funded corrections institutions here in the state. Okay, now think about that. 7 cents out of every dollar that the state collects goes to housing prisoners in the state system. That doesn't include the county budgets. Cumberland County, by way of example, spends $11 million a year on just the prison, but when you add up the entire cost of criminal justice expenditures, it's approximately $32 million. That is out of a $220 million budget or some such thing. So start doing the math. Let's just keep locking people up longer and longer and longer. California did that. They just had to let 20,000 people go. Let them go because they're out of money. We have to be rational about it, and we have to pick and choose who we incarcerate. It's sort of like this. Let's assume you're a farmer and you have 3 sons, and you're going to punish them, right, by sending them to their room. Okay, sounds fair. They do something wrong, you put them in their room. You don't let them out. You ground them to the room. But they also have to go out and work on the farm. And if you're going to ground them to their room and they're not working on the farm and all 3 boys have been grounded for a year, the farm's going to disappear, all right? So if we keep locking everybody up endlessly and there's no work release for a lot of these folks available whatsoever, and there's no way to make meaningful employment, and if they do work in the prison, the union interests keep them from going out and working in the greater community a lot of times. We lock up too great a percentage of the population, and we have to feed them, water them, clothe them, and even if you do that minimally, you have to do it humanely. We're going to bankrupt ourselves 3 different ways: welfare entitlements, the new health care expenditures, and this blind eye that we have towards criminal justice spending, because nobody has the political courage to say, oh, maybe we shouldn't lock people who deal in marijuana up for 100 years, or maybe we shouldn't take a first-time cocaine offender and put him in a 2-year state incarceration, because the other cost that's woven into this is if they are providing child support to somebody or paying for somebody's health insurance or paying for somebody's food and clothing, when they go away to that 2-year jail sentence, then they're not paying for anybody. Melanie, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger. My talk line number is 540-0580. What's going on, Melanie?
Hi, Carl. I'd like to know if my husband is cited for DUI and I'm in the car with him, am I responsible also? Could I be cited? I'm a licensed driver.
You know, the short answer is I would think so. And here's, I say, why would I say I think so? I rarely see it done. But there's a charge called violation of title, which is when you let somebody else use your car and violate the vehicle code knowingly. So you could be charged with that if in theory you own part of the car. Number two, it's a kind of reckless endangerment, and it might even make out, depending on how drunk he is and how badly he's driving, he might make out a higher instead of third-degree murder if he ran somebody over. So yeah, I would not ever counsel that you allow anybody who's been drinking and driving or drinking to drive. And if they absolutely insist and they're going to use physical force to prevent you from preventing them, then you don't get in the car with them.
I couldn't drive the car because it's 6 shifts. I don't drive a 6 shift.
Yeah, well, it's called a cab. It's called a friend. It's called you're not going to be party to that kind of badness. More importantly, you're putting your own life at risk getting in with somebody who's intoxicated. Now, I mean, if it's 2 Coors Lights, I don't think that's intoxication. If it's 2 Coors Lights and some Percocets and he's slurring his words, that's intoxication. Or rendered incapable of safe driving. So my point is you've got to kind of look that over on a case-by-case basis, but nonetheless, you don't want to be there, and you shouldn't have to be. And if he's putting you in that position, it's time for what they call a DIVORCE, and I spelled it just in case he's listening.
He's listening, but that's not an option. Well, okay. I do.
Were you in some kind of crazy religious cult or something that you can't divorce a guy who's going to make you ride with him drunk?
I don't want to divorce him. He's a good man.
No, he's not if he's doing that, Melanie.
Uh-oh.
No, he's not.
I'm going to have to talk to him.
Yeah, you're going to have to talk to him, and you're going to have to not allow him to do those things, and you can't be a party to it, all right?
All right. So the fact that I don't drink and that I own half the car, I could still be in trouble.
Oh, yeah, and you could definitely be civilly liable. And trust me, if you guys hit somebody, I'd be one of the attorneys, circling the tank, looking to sue you on behalf of our injured client and reach all your marital assets because I can get both of you, not just one of you.
Wow. Okay. Well, that answers the question. Thank you so much.
All right, Melanie.
Okay. Bye-bye.
That woman is in a bad relationship. Don't need to say more. 540-0580. Jim, you're on WHP 580.
Good afternoon, Carl.
Hey.
You, thankfully, and hopefully all your listeners hear this too, you prepared a will for me for free, and I thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, sir. And I told you that I would give some business to you if I was in the need of it, and I'm probably going to be.
Okay.
But I have a question for you, and then let me give you a question. I am in the middle of buying a home, and I'm about to close on it, and my wife and I are probably going to split up.
Okay.
I'm going to move in, and she's not. What's her entitlement? Is it half of the marital assets, including the home?
It's an equitable distribution in Pennsylvania. It's not a community property state, so it's not equal. And by equitable, I mean we look at who brought what to the marriage. We look at the evenness of the situation. We look at the ability of each party going forward, the length of the marriage. There's about 20 factors we consider. But the short answer is I always tell clients, start with the proposition that the marriage owns 50% of everything created during the marriage, or each side does. Start with that proposition and work from there. Now, it's not usual to see very large deviations. In other words, you don't see 90-10 splits, but rarely. 60-40 splits you do see, but that's even a little out there. But 50-50 splits sometimes, 55-45. Sometimes assets are easily split up. Sometimes they're not. If you've got a spouse whose earning capacity is much lower than yours, but you've been married a long time, there could also be an alimony component, unless there's some cohabitation or fault. So definitely something we probably would have to talk about in detail.
One thing that if I don't have any equity in the home, does she want half my debt?
Well, that's the other answer. If there's no equity, she's not entitled to. Well, she's entitled to the equity in the home as well as the debt in the home. All right. So if you're going to split up equity, you get to split up the debt that's attached to it. So it might be zero.
Okay, good. Well, the other question that I had is the will that you prepared for me seems to have gotten legs and disappeared.
Well, we can do you another one, no problem.
I didn't know if you had a copy in your office or if I got the only copy.
You got the original, but the way I do it is I take an original and give it to the client so that you always have your original in case you move, need it, so the people don't have to feel like they have to come find me to get your original will. But I keep a copy in a file, and then I keep a copy in a fireproof safe. So I've got 2 copies.
I'll contact your office.
All right, my friend.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
You too. Ken, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger. My talk line's 540-0580, and I want to remind people we'll keep taking calls during the bonus hour from 3 till 3:45. Ken, what's going on?
Hey, Carl. I was in a car accident about 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
I was in a construction zone, stopped, and got rear-ended by a Jeep Cherokee and totaled my car. A couple of minor injuries, low back injury.
Mm-hmm.
This guy took off. They caught him 10, 15 minutes later, no driver's license. He was DUI. Passenger was DUI. And the owner of the car, who was not in it, says that her insurance company is saying that they're not liable because she didn't give them permission to drive the vehicle.
Right. And that's a factual question that we could ultimately have a trial on. And believe it or not, the guys that hit you might remember it a little differently. They might remember being given permission.
Yeah.
So there's some action you can do called a declaratory judgment action to try to get back under that coverage. Also, you may have what's called uninsured underinsured. UIM coverage or no?
You mean for the medical part of it?
No, I just mean for general UI. It's called UIM UI. Or did you waive that?
I don't know.
Ken, what I'd like you to do, if you could, probably come see me off the air. I can look at bring me your insurance declaration sheet, and we can take a look at it and see if you have any coverages for personal injury that you'd be able to collect from your own insurance policy in a case where somebody that hit you is uninsured.
Right. I have uninsured motorist coverage.
Okay, that's what that's called UI.
Oh, okay.
And so that coverage will kick in. However, you don't want to just settle because you possibly could reach them as well, and you may have more coverage available than you realize.
Yeah, I think I do. I mean, I've consulted an attorney, but I didn't get all the answers that I needed, and that's why I'm calling you. Like, are they going to cover my car?
The short answer is the other no, your UIM UI will not cover your car.
I know that, but I'm wondering. They
should cover your car, but that would be through a declaratory. You're going to have to get back under that policy, and that's where we'd use a DEC action. We call it declaratory judgment action.
Okay.
Let me tell you, and I'm not going to toot my own horn here, but I will a little bit. I know how to find coverage. That's something that we do very well, and we can probably get you back in there.
Okay.
And the other thing is, we don't always have to charge a third either. There's ways that those can be done cheaper than that. So, Ken, if you want to, come see me. Be happy to help you.
All right. Hey, thanks for taking my call.
All right, no problem.
All right, bye.
Yeah, we can help, Ken. I got to go to break here, 540-0580. When I get back, we'll talk with Josh and Dave. And just keep in mind, we're going to keep taking your calls till 3:45. So if you want to call during the bonus podcast hour and you haven't been able to get through yet, or you haven't had a chance to call, or you're driving around, just call during that from 3 to 3:45. You'll be able to hear WHP's regular show, but I'll still be here recording the bonus podcast, answering your questions. See you after the break. Hell no, I can't drive 55. Whew, so glad they finally upped these speed limits. The safety Nazis, they don't want you to drive. They don't want you to drive 55. They want you to drive 35. And pretty soon they're going to want you to drive 15 everywhere, right? Because if it's safer in a school zone, it's probably safe everywhere. And nobody would ever be hurt if we just all slow down and go 5 miles an hour. And, of course, we filled in all the swimming pools, all those dreaded, terrible, evil swimming pools that kill kids left and right. And bicycles. I mean, there's no really need for a bicycle. They could have a stationary bike and sit in front of their Nintendo Wii or whatever that thing is, and the video screen would go, so it would be just as much excitement and fun. Heck, they don't even go outside anymore anyhow, so what difference does it make? 540-0580, Carl Rominger here answering your legal questions. We're going to keep talking through the bonus hour, so make sure you call between 3 and 3:45 if you can't call now. Josh, you're on the air.
Hey, Carl, how you doing?
Good.
I had a real quick question for you. My kids recently took in a stray kitten.
Okay.
We were prepared to, take it to the vet next week and, make sure it was okay to bring in the house because we already have a couple cats, and the vet recommended not bringing it in. One of my neighbors decided to go ahead and take the kitten and give it away. What options do I have to get the kitten back? Because obviously my kids are pretty attached to it already.
Who took it?
One of my neighbors actually took it and gave it to a friend of theirs.
Well, why would they do? Oh, because it was outside still.
Right. Well, it was on it was staying on our patio. We had a little shelter for it and food and water, and as far as we knew, everybody was aware that we were going to take the cat to the vet and be able to take it in the house.
Right.
But for whatever reason, he felt the need to give it to a friend of theirs who they've since taken it to their vet and got it in their house now, and they don't want to return the kitten.
Right.
Do I have any options? I mean, do I technically have possession of it since we were taking care of it?
Oh boy, Ferre Natare, Ferre Anime. I'm going all the way back to property class. There was this Pearson v. Post was this case of the fox, and I think if I remember right, Pearson sued Post because Pearson had shot the fox, but Post got to it first with his horse and picked it up or some such thing. And the question was, who do the animals belong to? And the idea of it belongs when it's reduced to your possession. So then later we apply that law to oil and newspapers and news, and it goes on from there through intellectual property. That's why it's big law school stuff. But domestic animal, right? But it's a stray domestic animal, so you reduced it to possession, but you hadn't really taken it in the house, but it was on your patio. You might have a superior claim to the cat. That'd be a fun case. I mean, from a lawyer's standpoint, I could see the judge looking at me like, no, please tell me that's not why we're here.
I wouldn't want to see it go to that, but, my kids are 2 and 4. And
do they have kids?
Something. The people that now have the cat?
Yeah.
I believe they have older kids.
Oh, yeah. Well, older kids can give up the cat. No, here's what you're going to do. I got a solution. It's a very much more, I think you might have a legal remedy, although it'd be very expensive, stupid to use, and might not work. That said, I think what you got to do, what color was this cat?
It was like calico. It was, black, had a little white on it and some orange in it. It was really neat colors.
Start crawling Craigslist, classifieds, whatever you need to. Find a similar looking kitten and tell the kids you found its brother.
Okay.
All right?
All right, thank you.
Thank you, man. 540-0580, Carl Rominger here. Remember, you keep calling from 3 till 3:45, so when the show ends, when we go off the air, we're going to keep talking with you, answering your questions. And, of course, you go to weekendappointment.com, you get my office number, and come see me during the week. Dave, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger.
Hey, Carl, I got a question. I'm dating a girl that called you a couple of weeks ago and asked you the wrong question. She wanted to know some things about a divorce.
Okay.
And the part of the divorce is it needs to be like an absentia where they split up in 88. This guy's like $16,000 in arrears.
Right.
Domestic relations will not give her an address. She can't get his address to file or get him to come sign anything or do anything. He just keeps skipping out. And it all started with a PFA. And,
right.
Like I said, she's like $16,000 in arrears. They've been apart for 22 years now. All 3 of her sons are grown. They're 22, 23, 24 years old.
We can get a divorce even if we don't know where the person is. I just have to jump through some hoops and show some effort. And one of the efforts that I would show if I filed a divorce is ask the judge to direct that domestic relations give me the address to make service. And, of course, if he turns me down, I can say, well, Judge, that was some diligence. And, by the way, I tested these little databases that my secretary and I are licensed to use that they give lawyers access to. And we couldn't find, we mailed stuff there, we didn't get anything back. So we know that the last known place he was in this area and then this other area. So we want to put something in the Law Journal and something in those two newspapers and consider him served. And the judge will sign an order called service by publication.
Okay.
And then the divorce proceeds forward. And then the next step is we publish it one more time, like when we say, okay, we're going to finalize the divorce, so you better hurry up and say something. Right. And then the judge finalizes the divorce, and it's lawful, legal, and done.
Well, that sounds good. That's like I said, the guy's in arrears. He's one of these fellas that every time 3 months comes up, he comes up with $100 to keep him out of jail, or $200 to keep him out of jail.
Right.
So, domestic relations knows where he's at. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Right.
And what did you call that procedure? Publication?
Yeah. Yep. Publication. Service by publication.
Service by publication.
Yep. Jerry, come out. Bring her in. We'll fix it.
Okay.
Do this all the time. Anybody else got some old spouse out there somewhere? Don't let them inherit everything. They'll show up. When you die, they'll show up. Trust me.
Exactly. That's what I keep telling her.
Trust me, they will. I know. I represent them sometimes to help them show up.
Yeah, no, I'm familiar with how that works, and I'm trying to make her familiar with, your sons won't see anything. It goes right to your spouse.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Now, you can write your spouse out of your will, but they can then take the spousal share, so she could give some to her sons, but he's going to be able to capture a lion's share in most estates. All right, Jerry, I'm going to let you go.
Okay.
Get her in here. 540-0580. 540-0580. Did I hang up the right guy there? Yeah, I think I did. Maybe it's Jerry.
Yeah.
Okay, what's going on?
Hey, Carl, how you doing, buddy? Hey, I have a question for you. Actually, it's two questions. First one is, what is conflict of interest per se? If a judge knows...
Jerry, here's what you're going to have to do. The music's up. I'm going to put you on hold. Stay for the bonus podcast. Just hang on. I'll answer your question in a few minutes. Hey, Carl Rominger here. The show's Weekend Appointment. I'm a lawyer that answers legal questions here on the air. You can go to weekendappointment.com, 540-0580. Keep calling. We're going to keep answering questions till 3:45. Otherwise, I'll see you live on the air next week.